Unitarian Universalists, today we come together and worship as faithful people in an interdependent web of shared humanity. Each week we honor what is of worth. In this hour, we pause the everyday rush and flow of our lives in reverence and thanksgiving to connect with what is sacred, to remember our commitments to each other and the world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome to bring your full self here. This morning, Pam Wittenberg and I are your worship leaders. I'm Mark Potter. Our guest speaker today is Rabbi Josh Frankling, head of the Jewish Center of the Hamptons, as their senior rabbi. He and Konstantin Lazarkis have co-written a column in Dan's papers called Hampton Soul that discusses issues anywhere from guns are the problem, to the nature of evil, to the law of common decency, to family dinners, the value of speech, all wonderfully written. Rabbi Josh also holds a BA and an MA in history. He is deeply involved in our local community across all aisles, and in 2022 was named People of the Year as an East Ender who makes the world a better place. There's much to learn about Rabbi Josh Frankling, and we are a congregation that will respectfully listen to you during this difficult and tragic time in history. Thank you for being here. Our musician is the performer Stephen Skolberg. Stephen is our music director and leads our choir every year. If you are enthusiastic about singing, then please see Stephen and Kent Martin for choir rehearsal dates. The more the merrier. Thank you, Stephen. Our tech hosts are Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson, who also fills in as our main minister and leader of the congregation, does much more than filling in. Monica Zazada on the camera, and we do have a live transcript on Zoom. There are actually there's one hearing-assisted device, the other one needs to be linked still, but there's still one that works very well back there by the computer. And please silence your other devices, and right now I'll take that example myself. So now that we've silenced our devices, we welcome children to remain in the sanctuary during worship for quiet play with Kim. You can find more information about how to connect to events this week in your e-bulletin and on the events calendar on our website. And you can get announcements that you would like announced to the congregation to our administrator by Tuesday of the week you would like them announced. Do we have any visitors today that would like to introduce themselves? If you are visiting, please sign our virtual guest book. If you're visiting on Zoom, please sign our virtual guest book. And if you're here today, I'm sure you signed the book on the way in. So now let's take a moment to greet our neighbors in person or in chat. And now we'll enjoy Stephen's opening music.
Our opening words are from the Unitarian Universalist Association's 2010 Statement of Conscience. Our faith calls us to create peace, yet we confess that we have not done all we could to prevent the spread of armed conflict throughout the world. At times, we have lacked the courage to speak and act against violence and injustice. At times, we have lacked the creativity to speak and act in constructive ways. At times, we have condemned the violence of others without acknowledging our own complicity in violence. We affirm a responsibility to speak truth to power, especially when unjust power is exercised by our own nation. Too often, we have allowed our disagreements to distract us from all that we can do together. We are charged to engage with more depth, persistence, and creativity in the complex task of creating peace. In your order of service is the UUA's statement on the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and Israel. In your order of service, it was written October 17th, 2023. Please tuck that into your pockets for later reading and as an aid for further discussions during coffee hour and together with the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson, with rabbis, with your families. Thank you. Our chalice lighting is from the Flame of Learning, our chalice of love. When Unitarian Universalists gather, we light a chalice. A chalice is a cup that represents giving a drink to someone as a way of welcoming them into your house, this house of worship. This sacred fire represents the light of learning. Our universal symbol of a flame in a chalice came to be during World War II for the Unitarian Service Committee to show refugees from many different countries that they were there to help them. Today, the chalice and flame still represents help and welcome in every UU worship service around the world. Please rise as you are willing or able for hymn number 338, I Seek the Spirit of a Child.
I seek the Spirit.
Our story for today is called Something Someday by Amanda Gorman. Do you remember her at Obama's inauguration with the yellow coat and the red hat? She has written this book. It is, she's a poet, and it's illustrated by a Caldecott honoree named Christian Robinson. It is a book created by them, a book about hope in a broken world. You are told that this is not a problem, but you're sure there's something wrong. You are told that this cannot be fixed, but you know that you can help. You are told that this is too big for you, but you've seen the tiniest things make a huge difference. He collected and is pushing a bunch of garbage, quote unquote. You're told that this won't work, but how will you know if you never try? Collecting more things, putting them in his cart. You're told to sit and wait, but you know people have already waited too long. You're told that's what's going on, that what's going on is very, very sad. But you're not just sad. You're scared and confused. You're angry. And maybe, just maybe, a little hopeful. You're told not to hope, but you keep hoping anyway. Sometimes you feel like you're all alone, but someday, somewhere, you find a friend, someone who will hope with you, who believes in your dream, someone who will fight with you. You make a promise to each other. You say, there is a problem, but it's our problem together, so we can fix it together. This problem is big, but together we are bigger. You make another friend and tell them it's okay to be sad. And they tell you, sometimes we'll lose. But that's all right, we'll try again. And so you do, together, working together, beginning over and over and over and over. Until you're no longer beginning, you're winning. They have a beautiful garden where there was once a lot of debris. Suddenly, there's something. You're sure it's right. Something you know you helped to fix. Something small that changed something big. Something that worked. Something that makes you feel hopeful, happy, and loved. Something that is not a dream, but the day you live in. Something that makes you smile as you tell someone else. And that's the last page. May your roots grow deep. May your branches spread far. May you find the world to be a wonderful place and leave it better for those who follow.
We support the work of this congregation through the gift of our time, our talents, and our treasure. Your financial contributions help to support the ongoing work of this congregation, including worship, religious exploration, and community care. And your generosity is reflected in the ways we are able to show up in the community for justice and service. Our Helping Hands Fund provides support to local organizations, and the Minister's Discretionary Fund support to individuals in immediate need. To contribute, you can use the baskets that will circulate. You can also use the link in our chat if you're online, or scan the QR code. This is a prayer by a Catholic peace activist, Rosemarie Berger. It's a prayer for peace in Palestine and Israel. We lift up Palestine and Israel, its people, its land, its creatures. War is a monster that consumes everything in its path. Peace is a gift shared at meals of memory with Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Let us burn incense, not children. Let us break bread, not bodies. Let us plant olive groves, not cemeteries. We beg for love and compassion to prevail on all your holy mountains. Let not one more child or elder be sacrificed on altars of political expediency. Keep safe all people from unjust leaders who would exploit vulnerability for their distorted ends. Give wise discernment to those making decisions to pursue peace. Provide them insight into fostering well-being, freedom, and thriving for all. Teach all of us to resolve injustices with righteousness, not rockets. Guard our hearts against retaliation and give our hearts for love alone.
Willing or able, for hymn number 1029 in your teal hymnal, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
Let me say once again, thank you for having me here. It is great to be back. It's really a pleasure. It is. And for the last few weeks, my focus has been directed towards the unfolding crisis in Israel and in Gaza. I did really seriously consider leaving all of that behind and speaking to you this morning about something else. But I do feel that were I to do so, that would be disingenuous of me. I've got to admit, I'm pretty emotional, and I generally don't like to speak from a place of being emotional, but I haven't stopped being emotional for the last couple weeks, so quite honestly, that is all I've got. I also know that I am likely to push you out of your comfort zones this morning. I'm going to share with you a voice that many of you might disagree with, some of you might not want to hear, but I'll tell you this, it's likely to run contrary to what you might believe and what the statement that the Unitarian Universalist Church made about the conflict in Israel and Gaza. But that's one of my roles as a rabbi. I want to quote one of my colleagues, well, really a legend, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. He said, "The role of a rabbi is not just to comfort the afflicted, but it is to afflict the comforted." So I tell my congregants when I'm about to share with them something that I know might be a little bit divisive, a little bit polarizing, that you really don't want a vanilla rabbi. I think you'd stop showing up to services. You want me to say something that is provocative, that will make you think. You don't want me to be a voice that simply bounces off the echo chambers of your walls. And I'm really grateful that you have all decided to bring me here to challenge you in ways that you might disagree. And so again, that's my disclaimer, and I'll also say this one more time. You might not like what I have to say. I've received more phone calls in the past couple weeks than I've ever received in my 10 years as a rabbi, and the phone calls have been from terrified congregants, also from local businesses, and simply my friends, my colleagues who want to check in on me, express their support, but also who need guidance, who need counseling, who just want a sympathetic ear to hear the Jewish pain that they are hearing and to hear their pain of being human beings. We're often asked, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" And the answer is, no, I'm not okay. I am really not. Because let me tell you right now, Jews are terrified. Not just for our friends and family who are in Israel, but for ourselves, living as Jews in America. You might have saw the headlines the other week. A Jewish woman in Detroit, who happened to be president of her synagogue, was brutally murdered right outside of her home, stabbed to death multiple times. At Cooper Union College in New York Wednesday night, Jewish students were locked in the library for 20 minutes as pro-Palestinian demonstrators pounded on the door, shouting anti-Israel slogans. Can you imagine the terror of being in that library as a Jewish student? Can you imagine what would have happened if those doors were broken down? What would have happened to those Jewish students? 2 Fridays ago, Hamas declared a global day of jihad against Jews throughout the entire world, triggering a massive fear among Jewish communities, our synagogues, our rabbis, and Jewish individuals, fearing that we would be attacked. We are terrified, and let me tell you, it's not paranoia. This is reality. We are more frightened right now than we have ever been at any point in American history. I wonder sometimes if people really understand the pain that we're in. Do people really understand how frightening it is to be a Jew right now? Do they not see the same horrific videos that Hamas terrorists shot of themselves, taking pride in brutally murdering and torturing innocent civilians? Did they not know about the babies who were mutilated at Kibbutz Kfar Aza? Over 200 hostages taken by Hamas terrorists back to Gaza. This includes 30 children. That's right, children. including Abigail Eden, 3 years old, Ariel Silberman Bibas, 3 years old, and his brother Kafir, 9 months old.
Taylor, where are you? In there? No,
All right.
no. Are you in here?
These were,
Are you?
I wait for that to get muted. Okay.
Hey, can you be Luna?
Okay. These were our families. These were our people, and they were targeted specifically because they were innocent, specifically because they were defenseless, and because terrorism seeks to imbue as much emotional trauma as possible. And in that way, they were successful. And if the words that you are thinking right now are but, or yes, but, or you've got to understand the context, if you're thinking that terrorism is justified in any way, if you're drawing equivalences in your head to the thousands of innocent Palestinians who have been killed in recent days from bombings, then you're doing exactly the same thing as countless individuals have been doing over the last few weeks. In the immediate wake of October 7th and the terrorist attacks on Israeli civilians, some of our country's brightest individuals proved to the world something that I never thought before, and that is intelligence alone cannot decipher moral clarity. Student groups at Harvard University, over 30 student groups, were quick to issue a statement after the reporting of the massacres, after innocent civilians were savagely murdered, women raped, even babies tortured. And for them, this is what they said, quote, "The Israeli regime is entirely responsible for all the unfolding violence," end quote. A statement from Yaleys for Palestine, from Yale, insisted that breaking out of a prison requires force, not desperate appeals to the colonizer. Yet statements like this pale in comparison to moral absence we've seen at the pro-Hamas rallies on campuses and across the country, including in Times Square. Bret Stephens was at the site of one of the rallies. Bret Stephens, you might know, journalist for the New York Times. He wrote, "I went to see one of the rallies for myself. He wanted to know, would there be any perfunctory condemnation of Hamas's methods? Perhaps a brief nod to the sympathy for Israel's anguish. Some banal nod to the cause of peace and nonviolence." That is not what I heard, he wrote. What I saw was giddiness and gloating, as if someone's team had won the World Cup. Hamas had perpetrated the largest single-day massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and the crowd was euphoric. Here's what one of the speakers espoused. He said, quote, "As you might have seen, there was some sort of rave or desert party. They were having a great time until the resistance came in and electrified hang gliders and took at least several dozen hipsters hostage. But I'm sure they're doing just fine, despite what the New York Post says." And what happened after this individual espoused these words? He was met with cheers. So I asked the question, where has our moral clarity gone? Because these were hardly the only morally askew voices to be heard across the country. Media abstaining from labeling Hamas as terrorists and instead calling them militants, or even worse, freedom fighters. You should know that the chant, "From river to sea, Palestine will be free," is not a call for freedom like we value freedom here in the United States. Free is free of Jews. That is an Arab state that will be free of Jews from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea. Everywhere where Israel exists will be free of Jews, free of Israelis. If you feel that murdering and mutilating babies is ever justified, we have a moral problem. If you feel that raping women is ever justified, we have a moral problem. I think you'd all agree with that. If we feel that kidnapping is ever justified, kidnapping children in particular, we have a moral problem. if you're faced with how to respond to this terror, and your options of response all involve targeting an enemy within one of the most densely populated places on the planet, with an enemy known for using human shields, you don't have a problem with the lack of true north on your moral compass. You've got what we call a moral dilemma. The kind of moral dilemma that scholar Lawrence Langer describes as a choiceless choice. A choiceless choice is a crucial decision between one form of abnormal response and another, both imposed by a situation that is in no ways of the victim's choosing. If Israel does nothing or simply withdraws, it will face continued attacks against its civilians. If Israel bombs Gaza or sends ground troops into Gaza, which will, by the way, be at the cost of its own citizens, it will minimize casualties. But there will still and always be collateral damage, and innocent Palestinians will suffer. There is a difference between being morally askew and being in a moral dilemma. And too often we see people lacking the moral clarity to be able to tell the difference. It feels like the world has gone mad. That's what it feels like when Jews look at the world. It feels like the world has lost the true north on its moral compass. I'll say this: if you are not mourning the loss of innocent Gazans who have lost their lives, who are suffering under the siege, who are terrified, if you are not sympathetic to their plight, then I would ask you, where is your true north on your moral compass gone? It is incredibly sad. And I stay up at night weeping not just for Israelis, but weeping for Gazans, for Palestinians too. And it's why I do believe that Hamas needs to be eradicated, because a government that doesn't serve its people, that puts them in harm's way, that doesn't use its taxes or aid to build infrastructure for its people, that commits its resources to violence, that kind of a government needs to be overthrown. It's evasive to simply say, I mourn the loss of all life. Of course we do. Of course we do. But a statement like that is being used constantly as a shield for not taking sides in what is morally wrong. It's far too easy to say there's wrong on both sides. It's far too easy to say that Israel should simply respond proportionally, like the response to the murder of 1,400 individuals who were tortured, raped, and mutilated could have any kind of proportionality to it. It's easy to say that Israel should turn the other cheek. It's far too easy to say that people should just love one another and be happy. It's far too easy to insult Israel with words like colonizer, apartheid, or genocidal state, which are not only offensive but objectively inaccurate. It's far too easy to insist on a ceasefire, and here's where I take issue with the statement that is in your program. It's far too easy to insist on a ceasefire as if nothing happened, without any resolve to hold those responsible for this savage act of terrorism and the thousands of rockets that continue to be fired and target civilian targets in Israel. It's not moral to offer an easy response. It takes moral courage to be able to do so. But it's cowardice if we don't. It's cowardice of not saying what is right, because doing so might offend people. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing an opinion that might be unpopular. It's cowardice to sit on the fence and not make a moral judgment. We need leadership committed to being moral guides for navigating complex times. We need leaders who are not just champions of morality in their own lives, but are able to sift through the complexities and determine what is right, even when an opposition screams in their face otherwise. Great leadership requires the ability to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, even when the world has shades of ambiguity. Remember when King Solomon was chosen to be the next king of Israel? 1 Kings chapter 3. Solomon was not like his father David. David, as we know, was probably not the most moral individual in the history of the Bible. When Solomon becomes king, he has a dream and he's talking to God. And he keeps on referring to himself as the son of your servant David, because he thinks David is the paradigm of what a good king should be. And God is telling him, no, that's not it. God says to him, Solomon, whatever you want, I will give it to you. Just ask what you want. Solomon's next words define who he is as the next king of Israel and the champion of moral leadership. Solomon says, give me not just a listening heart, but give me the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Solomon's leadership is not his moral compromise, but it's his moral clarity, it's his moral judgment, to be able to determine when something is right and when something is wrong. And now more than ever, we see a dearth in leadership committed to calling out evil in fear of standing up for what's right, offending other people. I fear that right now our world is spiraling into a state where moral relativism clouds our ability to understand the difference between what is right and what is wrong. We deserve media that has the moral courage to call out evil and doesn't fear offending people or losing readership. It needs to be able to say what is morally right. We deserve university presidents who don't write milquetoast statements about loving and respecting everyone when they stare in the face of evil. I don't know how many of you received such letters from your alma maters in the wake of the attacks on October 7th, but the ones that I saw simply did not want to offend their student population. That is not leadership. And we deserve clergy from all faiths that have the chutzpah, that have the courage to say what they believe to be right, even when it makes some of their congregants angry. And each of us in this room and each of us everywhere is responsible to hold accountable those who have lost the true north on their moral compasses. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Rabbi Josh Franklin. We see you. I will light one more candle. Please rise as you're willing or able to sing number 128, Teal Hymnal, The Fire of Commitment.
Call
rise and stay standing for Rabbi Josh Franklin's benediction. Thank you.
I pray for peace. I know all of us pray for peace and the end of violence. I don't know what that looks like. I don't think anyone knows what it looks like, but I do want to offer words that we have from the Jewish tradition. We say, Oseh shalom bimromav, may the one who makes peace on high, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, bring peace down to all of us. Ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol ha'olam, bring peace to all of Israel and to the entire world. Can we say it together? Amen.
We will say the words together in our order of service to extinguish the chalice, please. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. You may be seated. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Rabbi Josh.